So welcome back to Restless. My name is Father Joseph Gill, priest of the Diocese of Bridgeport, and you've joined us young adults, Paul, Alex, and Angelica, as today we seek the face of Christ restlessly. And one of the aspects of seeking the face of Christ is prayer. And can you believe that we've had over 100 episodes and we have not yet covered prayer?
Really? We've talked about prayer.
We've talked about prayer a lot, but we haven't had a whole episode on prayer.
We talked about the rosary.
Did talk about the rosary.
That's an element of that is a way to pray.
It is a way to pray. It is a way to pray. And we've talked about different things of prayer. And there's actually a reason why we haven't talked about it, because we did record this episode like a couple of years ago and we lost the file. So we're re-recording it. So we meant to.
We've improved.
We've improved. I think we've improved. I hope we've improved. So we're going to talk about prayer, which is basically nothing more than having a relationship with God. So what is your definition of prayer? Because a lot of people think you got to say certain words, do what? What is your definition of prayer?
Talking to God.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it?
Prayer, talking to God.
Talking
in
to God.
relationship with the Lord. Talking to the Lord, being present.
I would add conversation with God, because that just implies that he's, responding in some way.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a great point, because a lot of people do most talking and not a whole lot of listening. Paul, I think, is looking up something on his phone about a definition of prayer.
Yeah, because the Catechism, and I should have done this prior, but the Catechism is an excellent little ditty on prayer as an introduction, and I wanted to find it.
A ditty? Is it like a song?
Yes.
Prayer is awesome. You should do it.
Yeah, that's right. And you can come back to me.
Okay. So my favorite definition of prayer, have you ever heard the story of St. John Vianney and the peasant?
Tell
No, you don't know this? Yeah, I know you know this story. It's a very famous story. So St. John Vianney, of course, the patron saint of parish priests in southern France, the 1800s, he would see this poor peasant walk into the church every day, spend half an hour there, and then leave. And every single day, this poor guy, this would just do the same thing, this poor farmer. Finally, after a while, St. John Vianney said, what do you say when you go into the presence of the Blessed Sacrament? And the man responded, I look at him, and he looks at me.
Okay.
And he said that was the best definition of prayer you could ever use. Because a lot of times, do you ever find that you run out of words in prayer?
Yes.
You can't nod when you're on the radio.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so what do you do when you run out of words? Because sometimes that happens, right? What do you do?
Silence isn't bad, because then you can hear a response sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
It's not always bad to be silent.
Yeah.
When in a state of prayer.
It's
Or
true.
when one's wishing to pray.
Yeah. But sometimes silence feels like you're not praying, right?
Yeah, but it's part of a relationship, though. It's like if you do something with a friend, you don't necessarily need to be talking while you're doing it.
That's a really good point.
But you're still building a relationship because you're in the presence.
Yeah,
And you may talk,
that's true.
and something may come naturally. But you may not even, like a good friendship, you wouldn't even feel the urge to force a conversation.
Yeah. Well, Angelica, you're engaged.
I
So
am.
so does that ever happen with you and Josh?
That we run out of words?
Yeah. Alex is shaking his head. No.
Come on.
Have we introduced Alex, by the
No.
way?
Oh, there's Alex, by the way. Alex is Angelica's brother.
Little brother.
FYI.
Just to clarify, little brother.
So do you ever run out of words with Josh? It's okay to say no.
I don't know if run out of words would be a good way to say it. I think because it doesn't feel like something's missing or I'm trying to get words. It's just like there is none, and so there just is none. And
So you just kind of sit with him and hold hands or whatever.
Or if we're actually talking about something, I will tell him I have nothing to say, or like I have no thoughts on it, and then we just move on. And then sometimes we don't even have to be, well, we're with each other, but we don't have to be that close. So I'll like go look at something because I like to look at things, and it'll just be
Like a flower or something.
yeah, I'll just be like, wow, and I'll just walk around and yeah, do my thing, and then he'll be with me. I know he's there, and he knows where I am. I'm somewhere. But yeah, there's not a need for words, nor even being close, physically close to be with him. So
That's true, because I find in relationships that sometimes you grow the most when you're just doing an activity together, even without talking.
Well, it's a very masculine trait,
Yeah.
to clarify.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Just like hanging out with dad or whatever. We could just be watching TV, and that's still like a bonding experience.
Yeah, well, there's this always thing that, and I think it's important that when you talk about your relationship with God, is you kind of figure out where you are, right? Because men will a lot of times they bond side by side, so they're doing things, and women or men with women generally will bond face to face. And so that's why, I mean, I don't know. I think adoration is fairly popular, at least with the younger generations, but I think that might be why some people, especially men, might have some trouble in adoration, at least at the beginning, and praying in such a manner.
Well, I think I from hearing from a lot of men, they are very drawn towards serving God, kind of more than the intimacy piece with God. Like they want to do something for God, and that's kind of how they worship and pray. But
yeah.
So the question is then, what is your personal favorite way to pray? Adoration, the rosary, the Bible, spontaneous prayer?
Contemplation. Just kind of thinking and letting thoughts pass through. I mean, it's not so much that I'm forcing anything at that point. It's more just making myself open and letting God kind of run through me. If that's his will at the moment.
So do you have times when you want that to happen and like you feel like it's not happening?
I mean, there are definitely times where I'm just like getting frustrated because there's no because I don't feel anything within. But it definitely does give me a sense of peace and knowing that I'm just trying to think about God. I'm not necessarily trying to, just follow the format of, a given prayer where I might get distracted, or I'm not just trying to do all the talking myself.
That's awesome. So just kind of showing up and being present, letting God do the work. That's awesome. Now, Angelica, I know you have a burning desire for adoration. Tell us about you and adoration.
Me and adoration?
Yeah, because you got this ministry about starting adoration.
So where it started was, what to sum it up, it's in the words "Here I am," and so that can be our response to the Lord, and also the Lord saying that to us, and it's about showing up. It's about spending time with the Lord, and I found that when I didn't have access to adoration, I found new ways to adore. But I think ultimately it's different when you're in the presence of the Lord. Even if he's not exposed and he's in the tabernacle, it is different. But even from not exposed because he's in the tabernacle to exposed, it is different. And yeah,
So did something happen when the first time you went to adoration?
I remember I have a really young memory, really old memory of when I was young. I was at church and I was, I don't know, maybe 7 or something like that. And they had the kids in the basement and they were doing this little kids group thing. And the parents were all upstairs and I remember somebody coming downstairs to be like bring the kids, bring the kids up. And then so we go up the stairs and I remember somebody was holding me. I don't know if it was my father or maybe one of the leaders of that group. And we're in the back of the church and way up at the front, I see the Lord in the monstrance. And I remember just thinking why am I crying?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was just so struck by what I was looking at. And at that time, I didn't necessarily know, but I knew that I was crying and this was the reason why. And it wasn't a sad cry. It was just I was overwhelmed with this wave of I don't know, but I don't know how to describe it. It just was I was in awe and there was nothing else I could do but cry in that moment. So that's one of my favorite memories in adoration. But I think it's happened over and over again in different ways because now I'm right, as Alex said, having a conversation with the Lord or presenting something to the Lord or allowing him to present something to me. I find that I really like quality time, and he also brings peace to my mind. And it's not what I can bring to adoration. It's about just being with him. And it's not about what he can do for us in adoration. It's just about being with him. And there's a song that's it's called Nothing Else. And in the song it says like, I'm not here for anything. I'm not here for anything. I'm not here for your blessings. Like, of course, like they come, but that's what the relationship is like, and that's what the Lord has allowed me to experience throughout time.
That's so beautiful, because that's an important step in the spiritual life, to realize like we're seeking God and not his blessings.
Yeah. So actually recently I found out, well, the Lord allowed me to find out kind of what was going on in my this like kind of cloud that I was experiencing in my life, because I was close to the Lord, and I had continued to remain close to the Lord. There wasn't a sin, but I knew something was off. And I went to a retreat that was titled from C4C. It was titled Recovery of the Heart.
C4C is a young adult group called Crossroads for Christ.
Yes. It was titled, the theme of it was Recovery of the Heart. And I realized, I'm living out of this love that I have for the Lord. And it's so minimal in comparison to the ocean of the Lord's love for us. So it's like things like that. Like the Lord's teaching me to live, to seek his face, to really just get out of my own way. Yeah, did I answer your question?
And then some. Yeah, that was really beautiful. Yeah, so adoration is kind of your thing. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's where the Lord meets me.
That's cool.
Yeah, I would agree with adoration. I think it's something I discovered after college, working. I've always worked jobs that require me to do long hours and be stressed all the time. So I find that holy hour, specifically an hour or thereabouts, is really important, because like in order for me to even enter a state of prayer, I need to let my mind unwind for like 20 minutes. Something about being able to focus on Christ in the Eucharist, in the monstrance, really helps that expedite that process, or make it so it's worthwhile, maybe. And then I can enter a state of better prayer, whether it's just silence where my mind just kind of is clear for a moment, which is really pleasant, or allow other things, maybe just a spontaneous prayer, or be able to pray the rosary well, or do spiritual reading, whatever.
What is it? You know, 'cause we're talking about adoration, and I know like all of us here in this room love to do adoration, and I do it as often as I can too. And, you know, I do a holy hour every day. But what is it that specifically, like, it seems like God is raising that up in this time as the best way that young adults love to pray? Why is that? I mean, even in my youth group, like 7th and 8th graders love adoration, like they hunger for it.
Smartphones. I think it's smartphones and other media and things, because it's overwhelming. We're overstimulated. And so in adoration, it forces you to remove what's unnecessary in that moment. Or I guess you don't have to, but generally people do. And I think it's really important.
Go ahead, Angelica.
I think we're all searching for a home, and even if we don't recognize it, we know that the phone's not it, the movie's not it, even our family, it's not it, even our home, like where we live, is not it. And just being in front of the Lord, having that experience, people don't really need convincing there. They don't need another person to really guide them, because Jesus is right in front of them. They don't even need to understand. I think
you can let Jesus do the work. Yeah,
exactly.
Just come in there and he does the work in your soul.
So,
yeah, and I love the Mass, obviously, but I think one advantage to the traditional Latin Mass over the English Mass is that the English Mass is very wordy. Like you're always engaged in some way. There is that lack of silence.
And the same thing why the Latin Mass is pretty popular too among younger generations.
Right, because there's that silence.
Yeah, it's also removing you from the world. Something
contrasting.
Yeah, it's very contrast. And that's the same thing with adoration too, because it's quiet. It's low stimulation.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's really nice. Have you ever struggled though with the boredom that can come in prayer? And what do you do with boredom when it comes to prayer? Boredom or dryness?
I mean, usually when I just find myself bored or in a point where I'm just kind of stuck, I just offer it up, try to make myself ever more open. I mean, C.S. Lewis, in his work, The Screwtape Letters, of course, it's like all speculation on how demons work, but one of the interesting things that he has Wormwood say to his nephew, or Screwtape say to his nephew, is that when we're in the midst of like what might seem the hardest struggle, it's the point where we're about to make the biggest breakthrough. And I find that I find that can be applicable to a lot of different things, but especially prayer and spiritual life. When you're struggling with temptations or something like that, like what might seem like the worst of it all could just be, the point where you're gonna find yourself growing closer to God. You're gonna find God, saving you. And when it comes to prayer, I think that boredom or that sense of almost not knowing what to do next is what God's going to use to bring you closer to himself.
Yeah. That's so true. I don't know if you guys feel this way, but there's a lot of times I go to pray and I feel almost like this disorienting sense of like, why did I ever believe this in the first place? And I know that's like a spiritual attack, because I absolutely know Jesus Christ is truly present in the Eucharist and he listens to my prayers and things like that. But like, you're right. It's like that like struggle in faith. And then all of a sudden, like a couple of days later, something really powerful will happen and something really beautiful. So practically speaking, when you're bored, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very attracted to boredom lately. It's been a state that I really enjoy. I'll give you an example. So,
please do, because most people think that's
I took this
something to
job in
avoid.
New York City recently, so I'm commuting for listeners who aren't from around Fairfield County, I'm commuting from Stamford to Manhattan every day, which involves driving to the train station, taking a 50-minute train, and then a 10-minute walk, both ways. And I was really looking forward to the train rides, especially in the evening, to like catch up on my reading or do some prayer. But I find myself most of the time just sitting, staring blankly into space on the train with nothing. And I actually kind of look forward to that because again, it allows my brain to unwind. So anyway, I look forward to boredom. But I would say that when I have to focus, I mean, the rosary is probably my fallback. If one could call it the fallback, I think it's a great thing. But
Yeah.
because it's just time when you can spend 9 to 15 minutes or more,
Depending how fast.
like very focused
rosary, yeah.
on prayer for that moment, and it's rather concise, and you can offer it up, and hopefully pray it well, and that's a time when you can dedicate it, and it's something that's for somebody like me, it's just been really effective. And now, as we talked about on the Rosary episode, which was sometime in the past, hopefully, it's come to a point where I kind of miss, like, if I miss a day of praying the Rosary, it's like an emptiness.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean, that's kind of the whole point of saying this Hail Marys over and over again, is to calm one's mind.
Yeah, it works. It works well.
It can. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been trying to pray the Rosary on the train.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
A wise
On flights. I'm on flights a lot. I fly a lot for work. I'm on planes that fly me. I don't actually fly. Just to clarify.
Paul was saying that today he flew from New York to Boston.
Yeah.
And then back. Or
I took the train back. Yeah. It's not that. It's a 35-minute flight, but.
Oh my God. Do they even serve like peanuts on it? Well, like, they don't see do peanuts. Pretzels?
No. Why would you
35
need
minutes.
it?
I don't know.
They don't even turn off the seatbelt sign most of the time.
Really?
Yeah, you go up, and once you hit cruising altitude, you start
going down.
Yeah, it's great.
35-minute flight. Wow.
Yeah,
That's awesome. The shortest flight I ever took was from Philadelphia to Baltimore.
That's very.
It was
short.
20 minutes.
Yeah, that's
It was
even shorter.
It actually would have been faster if I used the train because of all the check-in time and the wait around
for
time.
sure.
I was like,
Yeah.
why did I do that? That was foolish. Yeah. So like in your prayer, like, so a lot of times, people ask for things in prayer. I mean, do you find that God is responsive to that? And if so, why? And if not, why not? Like, have you prayed for things that haven't come true? And
Yeah.
so a lot of people really struggle with that. They're like, well, is God real? Because, I prayed for this. It doesn't work,
Well, the Lord's not a genie.
But Robin Williams was. Okay, go on.
Oh, man. So,
Robin
yeah.
Williams, did he play God in something?
No, he played the genie in Aladdin.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, go on.
I'm thinking of like Bruce Almighty, but go on.
Deep reference.
That's not. No, what? Who's that guy that played Bruce Almighty, the God in Bruce Almighty?
The God in Bruce Almighty was Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman. That's the one. Yeah. If God doesn't sound like Morgan Freeman, I'm going to be disappointed.
Okay.
Like, for real.
All right, sounds good.
So, like, how do you explain that? How do you explain that God doesn't always answer our prayers?
Well, does a good, loving father really tell their 5-year-old kid? Do they tell their 5-year-old kid, like, all the details of life? Can the child really understand it? And is it more loving to tell them and like, scar them at 5 years old, or tell them and, they're going to do their own thing and they can try and get ahead, or tell them and like, do they really need to know?
So you're saying like God kind of hides the future a little bit.
I think he knows what's best for us. And he tells us he has his perfect timing, right? And I think most of the time, I mean, if you talk to people who have been in a relationship with the Lord for any amount of time, and you have them recall a time when they've asked the Lord for something and the Lord's kind of either said no in that moment or had a delayed response, and they look back, they're usually like, yeah, I couldn't have received that when I was asking for it.
Yeah.
I received it at the perfect time. And I think that's true for a lot of people. And it's hard. It is hard when you're asking the Lord over and over and over again. And I think, well, why are you asking him over and over again? Like, is this genuine? Do you want to ask him maybe a different question? Are you being called to ask a different question? I think there is a place for, discerning what should I pray for, Lord? Is it going to be a list of things that I'm going to bring to adoration to, like, kind of go down the line? Am I just listing things, or am I actually praying for these intentions and requesting these things from you?
Yeah.
What is the position of my heart when I ask?
I mean, that's easy enough to say when you're asking for, a new job or something, but like when you're asking because your kid has cancer and it's going to die, like that's a much more kind of desperate kind of prayer, right? And
yeah, I was reminded of Hebrews today. Hebrews 11 has, I think it says by faith and then something. I like the way that it's worded, and it's basically like, by faith he knew that although he was asked to kill his only son, that the Lord was good enough and like great enough to bring him back to life, to bring him back from the dead. And then it's like,
that's true. Abraham had that trust.
Yeah, and that's all through faith. I mean, if the Lord wants to increase your faith in that way, then that's the way that he's calling you to do it. But I don't think like to stop praying really is the answer. It's like, what is your prayer? Like, and I know it's hard.
So how honest can you be in prayer? Can you ask God, like, why? Can you get angry with God in prayer?
Yeah.
Like, what's your thoughts?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, I'd say yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Why would you hide anything from him? He knows it already.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, if it's a relationship, then that would be, and we're human, and like that would be a natural part of relationship.
Just being angry and frustrated.
I mean,
or why not?
One could say it's kind of destructive to keep, certain emotions hidden away, even like though God knows it, he knows our struggles and what we're going through. I couldn't say that my relationship with my siblings would be as good if I didn't let them know when I'm upset, or if they didn't let me know when they're upset. So,
personal question. Have you ever done that? Have you ever said to God, God, I'm angry, or God, I don't know why you're doing this? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
That's good.
Have you? No.
Yeah, I have, but I've honestly, true honesty, I've never understood how people can get angry with God. I've asked him why, but I've never understood how people can get angry. I genuinely haven't, because I guess to me, like that, to me is like, it's kind of like saying I don't have faith. Like I don't really believe that you really want what's best for me. Because if you really know who God is, that he's a good, loving father, like getting angry, like what are we saying? You're saying, God, I don't believe that you are who I say you are. I don't know. I've never had like a major tragedy happen to me either. So,
yeah, I mean, I think it's tough. We are human, and so, I mean, maybe it is a lack of faith, but like we should be praying to grow in faith too.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? I mean, do we have perfect faith? Like,
definitely not.
No.
Definitely not.
Okay, so then this is a fault of that. So, yeah, I mean, we're recording this on September 29th, which would have been my brother's 37th birthday. 37th? 2022. Yeah, 37th birthday. 30, is that right? 36? I don't know. I got to do math. 38th birthday. 38th birthday.
Okay.
And And then he died on October 10th. So like this week or this next, whatever, 11 days is like a second like Holy Week or something like that in my family. It kind of begins it. And so I remember back then, 8 years ago, like, yeah, there's a lot of prayers like that. It's very hard.
Yeah, I bet.
But you see, there's a difference between getting angry and losing and not loving. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we can get angry, but at the end we can still say, Lord, I trust you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Any examples from your own lives? If not, that's okay.
I mean, I know that it's happened before. I'm just trying to remember when. I mean, a lot of the times I feel like, I have a responsibility as a student and as, a member of my family. And I feel like a lot of the times I find one of those kind of taking away from the other. And it can be hard to kind of prioritize those two in the same way. And I feel like a lot of the times, even though it's kind of, I don't really know how to say it, almost seems immature, like in hindsight. But I kind of feel like it was unfair for God to kind of put me in that position of like having to choose one over the other. Now I would say like my management is much better. But like even though it seems like something so simple now, then like while it was going on, I couldn't have considered it simple or easy.
Sure, yeah, that's true. And actually, that's a great segue into the next question, which is a lot of people say they're so busy and they don't have time to pray. So what would you say to those people? Whether they're young adults or older adults or wherever, everyone lives a busy life, stressed out, pulled in 1,000 directions. Like when you were torn between being a student and a son, like how did you find time to pray?
I mean, our family tries to pray the rosary every night. It doesn't always work because, someone's bound to fall asleep or...
Alex.
Okay, not always.
Yeah.
But
every time I pray the rosary at your house, you're usually pretty out.
It's very difficult having so many, and also on top of that, most of them being, very young.
The Martinezes have 11 kids in the family.
Yep.
For those listening. So.
But I would say that like... I don't know. I hear it a lot, and I don't know who said it, but I was like, the way that I try to think about it, or my approach to prayer, is to put that first and foremost, and then organize the rest of my life around it. Whether that falls through or becomes reality, that's a different matter. But as long as like that's your focus, everything else is going to fall into place because God won't let you struggle for trying to have a relationship with Him.
Well, that's for sure. Yeah, He'll give you the grace to do it. What is your guys' prayer life like, especially as a young adult? How do you fit it in, like practically? Like, do you do it on the train on the way in? Do you do it on the after work? Like, so train mostly kind of
after work. Yeah, I wish I could be better in the morning.
A lot of times, people just kind of like grab scraps of time here and there, wherever they can.
Yeah, I tend to fall into that category occasionally.
And that's okay. It's better to pray with scraps than to not pray at all.
Yeah.
I mean, my advice is coming from somebody who prays with scraps sometimes, is like do something.
That's true.
Do something. Like if it's like Our Father prayed well, that's better than nothing.
Very true.
Right. So like do something and then grow from there. It's the same advice I give for if you don't know how to donate money, start with something.
$1. Yeah.
Yeah. Start with something, and then let it manifest from there. So. That's generally my advice.
So what would you say that people should shoot for? Like how many minutes a day? What should be a good like solid prayer life for a Catholic?
I think it's wrong to kind of say to have that kind of approach to it because I feel like everyone's trying to do the bare minimum in some kind of way. So I think it's more in a certain respect, a personal thing. But I would say, start off slow, start off simple, start off with something that you can do. Like, don't try to go too far. Otherwise, you're just gonna kind of drain yourself. But like, as you start off slow, try like building up slowly on that. Even if it's like, you start off with 10 minutes of prayer, then go to 15 the next week or something. Like as long as you're trying. And also like as you go along, you're gonna gonna see things change in your life as long as you make time for prayer, and also you're gonna see the difference between the days that you pray, the days when you pray well and you are able to take that time, as opposed to the days that you don't. It's going to be like a difference between night and day.
That's so true. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say too, pray in a way that you look forward to it. Because a lot of times we dread prayer, like, oh, I've got to do it, I've got, right before. No. Pray as you can. Pray like in a way that like delights you. Like that's why I always pray the rosary walking around, like out in nature. Because that's for me something I look forward to. It's not something that I'm like, oh, I've got to do it. I'm like, yes, good. I get to take 20 minutes and go and take a walk in nature and pray the rosary.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the Exodus 90 program is like an hour a day, and if you can't do an hour, do 20 minutes. And the C4C recommends 24 minutes. 20 minutes.
24 minutes?
Yeah, 24
Exactly.
C4C recommends 24 minutes, yeah.
Can't go over that 24-minute limit.
Right. Recommends. You can do more or less, I guess.
So that's interesting because a priest once told me if you can't do an hour, do 55. Like don't start with 20. Do as much as you can. If you can't do a full hour.
Yeah, the minimum.
Oh, bare minimum is 20?
Check that off your list on the Exodus 90 app on your phone, which is ironic. But anyway, is 20 minutes.
Using your technology
right.
on Exodus 90.
But there's an app. It used to be a book.
And
they're like, no, I'm on to deal with the book.
There's an app for that.
There's an app.
There's literally an app for everything. I think that's good advice. That's good advice. So, any final comments about prayer?
Yes.
Oh, did you finally get the
yes.
catechism definition of prayer?
Yes.
That only took us 30 minutes.
No, I had it up for a long time. So it's actually I didn't remember this because I haven't read this in a while, but it's actually a Therese of Lisieux quote. Biography is, for me, prayer is a surge of the heart. It is a simple look turned toward heaven. It is a cry of recognition and of love, embracing both trial and joy.
Well, I don't think we can top that. So thanks so much for joining us in this episode of Restless. You can find us on Veritas Catholic Network, 1350 AM and 103.5 FM. And my challenge for you is just do it. Go out and pray. Develop that prayer life. Keep increasing it because our Lord wants to hear from you. He desires more than anything. He thirsts for a living relationship with you. And since that's what we're going to be doing for all eternity, prayer is the way in which we get accustomed to that relationship here and now. Thanks so much. Tune in next time.